What would you do if you saw a lion cub, alone, starving, barely alive, suddenly accepted by a lioness who had lost her own child? Would you intervene? Step back? Or let nature teach you something no textbook ever could? Because in the wild, motherhood isn't always about blood. It's about instinct. It's about love. Comment your thoughts below before you hear the full story. Night fell over the savannah like a slow breath, silent, still, eternal. But under that silence, danger moved. A convoy of headlights, whispered radios, then gunfire. In an instant, peace shattered. A pride scattered into the darkness. Panic reigned. And in the chaos, a lioness stood her ground. She roared, not in fear, but in defiance, in protection. Her cub cowered behind her legs, too young to understand the meaning of death. But she knew. She took the bullets without backing down. When the trucks vanished into the horizon, they left nothing but silence and a body cooling in the dust. The cub, no more than 3 weeks old, trembled beneath a tangle of dry brush. His tiny chest heaved. His calls were weak, lost to the wind. He didn't know where to run. He only knew what was gone. No mother, no warmth, no pride, just emptiness. For days he wandered, drawn by instinct, led by hunger. Dust clung to his coat. His legs barely held. Death was closing in. But the story didn't end there. Because even in the wild, even in the most ruthless corners of the earth, life finds its way back. The days that followed were a blur of fear and fading hope. The cub, still too young to know what death truly meant, wandered through the brittle grasslands. His cries, once sharp and constant, grew weaker with each passing hour. He drank morning dew from leaves. He stumbled over roots. His ribs began to show beneath thinning fur. The wild was not a place for mercy, not for the small, not for the alone. Above, vultures circled like grim questions. Hyenas sniffed at the air. Eagles watched from branches, silent and cold. Every sound in the bush became a threat. Every shadow, an omen. He was near the end, until she came. Kaya, a lioness once hardened by grief, her own cub lost to sickness months before. Since then, she'd roamed without purpose, half hunter, half ghost. But in the cub's final desperate cry, something stirred. She approached slowly. He cowered. She lowered her head. No growl, no rejection, only a single quiet lick. And in that single gesture, something ancient awoke. The instinct to protect, the memory of motherhood, the will to love again. The cub didn't understand, but he followed. She didn't understand, but she let him. And beneath the fading light, something remarkable began. A family, not formed by blood, but by need, by instinct, by choice. Dr. Aisha had spent years studying lions in the Kenyan wilderness, documenting their lives, losses, and the unspoken language of the wild. But nothing could have prepared her for what she saw that day through the lens of her long-range camera. She recognized the lioness instantly, Kaya, a matriarch once known for her strength, until grief hollowed her out. A year ago, Kaya's own cub had vanished, presumed taken by predators. Since then, she had roamed alone, her spirit dimmed. Now, before Aisha's eyes, Kaya approached a fragile, motherless cub, not with dominance, not with disinterest, but with something gentle, familiar, maternal. Aisha held her breath. In the next heartbeat, Kaya licked the cub. It wasn't instinct. It wasn't routine. It was a choice. And in that moment, Aisha felt her professional instincts falter, giving way to something deeper, wonder. She scribbled notes, snapped photos, but her heart wasn't in the data. It was in the space between predator and prey, between science and soul. She was witnessing something rare, not just in lions, but in life. Adoption in the wild was nearly unheard of, but this was happening, not in theory, in truth, in motion, in heartbeats. Aisha didn't speak. She didn't step in. She simply watched. Because sometimes the most powerful thing a human can do in the presence of grace is nothing at all. In the days that followed, the Savanna bore witness to something rare, a bond not forged by blood, but by survival. Kaya, once a lone shadow across the grasslands, had become a guardian again, and the cub, now named Chui, followed her every step. Where she crouched, he crouched. Where she paused, he listened. She showed him how to read the wind, how to disappear into the tall grass, how to listen for danger. She hunted smaller prey, more out of mercy than ease, so that he could learn to bite, tear, feed. When jackals approached, she stood between them. When thunder cracked, she led him to shelter. She became his teacher, his shield, his home. And through it all, Dr. Aisha watched from afar, heart swelling with every quiet lesson passed between them. She captured every moment, yet never dared to intervene. Because this wasn't just survival, it was something sacred. It wasn't about instinct anymore. It was about choice. Kaya had chosen to love, and Chui had chosen to trust. Two souls, once broken by loss, were now walking forward, together, rewriting what it meant to be a family in the wild. As the dry season tightened its grip, the world around Kaya and Chui began to wither. Water vanished, prey grew scarce, and the winds pushed them farther from safety, closer to danger, toward the edge of the reserve, toward human territory. To Dr. Aisha, watching from a nearby outpost, this was the line she feared. She'd promised herself she wouldn't interfere, but now, the cub she'd watched grow, raised by a lioness who wasn't his mother, was in real danger. Villagers had reported lions near cattle. Fear was rising. And fear, Aisha knew, pulled triggers faster than reason. So she made a choice, not to trap them, not to cage them, but to clear the path ahead. She dispatched rangers, not to control the wild, but to protect its right to move. No fences, no darts, just respect from a distance. Because sometimes, loving a story doesn't mean writing the ending. It means knowing when to step aside and let nature finish what it started. A year had passed. Chui was no longer the fragile cub who once whimpered beneath the brush. Now he moved with quiet strength, muscles lean, instincts sharp, eyes fierce. A lion made not by blood, but by love. One evening, just past dusk, a camera trap flickered to life. There they were, Kaya and Chui, walking side by side beneath the fading stars. No roar, no fanfare. Just two shadows moving as one. Dr. Aisha stared at the footage long after it ended. She leaned back and whispered, almost to herself. She didn't give him life, but she gave him a reason to live. And in that truth, something eternal stirred. Because in the wild, as in life, family is not always who you're born to. Sometimes, it's who finds you when you're lost. Who shelters you when no one else will, who chooses to love you even when they've lost everything. In the heart of the Savanna, where survival is law, Kaya broke the rules, not with force, but with compassion. Because sometimes, the fiercest roar isn't loud at all. It's the quiet bond that says, "You are mine, and I won't let you go." In the wild, strength is measured by more than teeth and claws. Kaya taught us that true power lies in the courage to care, even when you've lost everything. And Chui showed us that survival isn't just about instinct. It's about who chooses to stand beside you. This story isn't just about lions. It's about resilience, about motherhood without conditions, about the families we form, not by blood, but by love. Sometimes, the most powerful bonds are the ones we don't expect. And sometimes, the wild has more to teach us about humanity than we realize. If this story moved you, even for a moment, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, because stories like Kaya and Chui's deserve to be remembered, not just by the Savanna, but by all of us.